Okay, so the plan is today to talk very practically about Passover and get ourselves as ready as possible for this year Pesach. This year Passover is the way it's set up is unique because Passover begins on a Saturday night. So you go Shabbat, which is not Passover, and then there's no break in between. You just go direct from one straight to the other. Saturday straight, Shabbat straight into Passover. And that kind of changes some of the things. The way this is not a common occurrence. The next time this is going to happen is in 20 years, just so you understand. So it's not that common that the first Seder, the first night of Passover is Saturday night. The next time will happen in 20 years. So let's start before that. In order to get ready for Pesach, we have to get rid of our chametz. What is chametz? Chametz means anything that is made out of 5 grains: wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye, that is then mixed with liquid and has had time to rise, is forbidden on Passover. Not only is it forbidden to eat, it is also forbidden to own, with the exception of if it has been turned into something which is not even fit for a dog to eat. So, for example, if you mixed flour and water and you turned it into and then you turned it into shellac or paint. If the paint is chametz for whatever that would be possible, that's not a problem. It's more just food, or at least edible by a dog. So
Wheat, oat, barley.
spelt and rye,
So if it's frozen, it's still considered.
yes, because then it's still, not, even though right now, but it's like you just defrost it and it will be. Then there's also another whole category of things which for an Ashkenazi Jew is considered chametz, and it goes under the word kitniot, legumes. This is beans, corn, rice, and so on and so forth. Now, it's not like chametz to the same degree as real chametz. So, for example, children need to eat formula, and your formula is made out of soy or something like that. So even if you're an Ashkenazi Jew, classic tradition is that for the baby, they're allowed to eat it. So once we know what is chametz, right? Classic items of chametz that you probably have in your house are whiskey, vodka, beer, pasta, bread, cookies, pretzels. Any of those kinds of things are chametz. You may not have them in your house. You may not eat them. You may not own them. So what do we do about this? So we get ready for Passover in 4 steps. First thing you got to do is you got to start cleaning. You got to start cleaning and make sure that there is no chametz lying around. So there is no chametz in your car. For those of us that have children, we know that the car is a serious situation, right? There's pretzels and crackers, there's stuff happening everywhere. So you got to clean the car. If you have kids' backpacks that they take to school every day and you send them with snacks, you got to go through the backpacks, got to go through the baseball bags, got to clean the house between the pillows of the couch, and so on and so forth. You got to clean the house everywhere. That's number 1. So the house is clean, and any chametz that you have that you potentially don't want to throw out has to go into closets or into places which you can then seal up. And then what we do is we sell the chametz. What does it mean we sell the chametz? We sell the chametz. It's a real sale. You have to be willing to sell it wholeheartedly, and you basically give the authority to the rabbi on your behalf to sell your chametz. He meets with a non-Jew and he sells your chametz. And at that point, it's not yours over the holiday of Passover, and the rabbi will buy it back after Passover. So it's very important to fill out the form that says, I'm selling all my chametz on Passover. But again, you can't then drink the beer because you sold it. It's not yours. That's stealing. So you have to put it away in a locked away place and make sure, and then fill out the form that you are selling the chametz. So cleaning, selling. Then what's going to happen is on Thursday night this year, there is a tradition that usually this is done the night before Passover, but because this year the night before Passover is Friday night, you can't do it on Friday night. So Thursday night this year, what we do is at this point the house should be totally clean. You're going to take 10 pieces of bread, wrap them up in a tissue or something, hide them all around your house, and then using a feather and a spoon and a candle, you make a blessing that God instructed us to search for and remove chametz. And you go searching your whole house. So you search the drawers, you look wherever chametz might be. That's the time that we make sure that all of the chametz is gone. And during this process, obviously, you pick up the 10 pieces and you collect them in a bag, make sure that they don't get lost. Then this year on Friday morning, so usually we're going to burn chametz. Now, usually we burn chametz the day before Passover, but this year it's a little bit more tricky because, again, the whole story of Shabbat. So this year we're going to burn the chametz on Friday before 12:23. Before 12:23, you take those 10 pieces of chametz and you put them in a fire, and that's the active activity of destroying chametz, which the Torah says we're supposed to do. So we cleaned and searched for chametz, we sold our chametz, we burned our chametz, and then the last piece is a very important piece, which is that you're going to make a declaration on Saturday morning that any chametz that you didn't remember about, you forgot about, and it's sitting somewhere in your house or anywhere in your property at work or whatever it is, you nullify it, which means you declare it to be ownerless, it's meaningless to you, you don't care about it, and therefore it's not yours. So this way, even if there is a crumb of chametz somewhere in your car, right? So now you own it, that technically could be a problem. You've declared it ownerless, and it's not yours anymore. That's difficult to do to a $400 bottle of whiskey because then it's making a joke out of it, right? Who's declaring a $400 bottle of whiskey ownerless? But that we sold, we've done the searching as much as we could, and then whatever maybe we forgot about, how meaningful is it to you if you forgot about it? But maybe at your work, you have a desk and you left a granola bar on your desk at work. Again, maybe in a car, there's a cookie rotting away somewhere. Maybe in one of your pockets, there's, a little bottle, a little flask of booze. Each to their own, whatever it is. So then you say, I'm nullifying it. It's not, I don't own it. I don't care about it. And then even if it is somewhere, you're not responsible for it because it's not yours. If on Passover you will find it, you'll have to, throw it out or pour it out. So you won't by accident come to eat it or drink it.
So technically, sounds like, again, very strict, a lot of safety nets, right?
Yes.
So what is the deeper meaning? Why we're so concerned?
It's a good question. I don't have the deeper meaning for you right here, right now, although of course there is deeper meaning. Chametz represents the inner negative traits of a person. In order to achieve freedom, there's this, real commitment to searching it all through. But on a practical level, chametz on Passover becomes forbidden even at the tiniest amount. So usually tiny, tiny drops of forbidden food. It's not forbidden in the smallest amount. But chametz is forbidden even in the tiniest amount.
Understood. So very strong, very
right. Which is interesting because chametz is not always on this. To your point about the deeper side, what you have to think about a little bit, because chametz today is permitted, next week is forbidden. So there's something about it when it's not always forbidden. Pig is always forbidden for a Jew. Meat and milk mixture is always forbidden. Here's something where in the temple, which is one of the reasons why we go so strong for it, because it's like a person that.
What's Torah portion? How did our ancestors and rabbinical laws come up with a series of laws? What triggered
The
it?
Torah many, many times said, when the Jewish people left Egypt, that they're not allowed to have any chametz for the holiday of Passover. And the Torah says, Bal Yera'eh, you can't see it. Bal Yimatzeh, it shouldn't be found. So the Torah uses all of these languages that you can't eat it, you can't find it, and you can't own it. So it's this prohibition is a biblical prohibition. It's not a rabbinic prohibition. All of these safety nets are just how the rabbis teach us to address it. But the prohibition in of itself is, but to the idea on a deeper level, I think the point is that because we're so used to it, That's why we have to be so careful about it. In other words, if a person never eats, bacon, so they're not going to by accident wake up and have a piece of bacon. They're going to by accident walk into a restaurant that sells bacon. But chametz, I eat chametz every single day, so there's less safeguards in my life because I'm so used to eating it. I'm so used to drinking it. I'm so used to using it, and so on and so forth. So the measures against it have to be much stricter because so you don't by accident come to. Because the question is, if I could just sell my chametz, why do I have to clean it all? Just sell your chametz and that's it. The answer is because you still might by accident come to engage with it because you're so used to using. There's one other piece that we're not going to be able to discuss today because it's a very needs a lot of time, which is that your kitchen utensils, you cannot cook with regular utensils that have been used for non-chametz, or have been used on a regular chametz now for Passover. So there's some element of a transformation that has to take place in the kitchen. There's multiple ways of doing it. Either you get new dishes, or you can kosherize those dishes that have been used before. That includes counters, pots, forks, knives, so on and so forth. So there's that whole element to it as well, that any food that you're going to cook, in order to make it kosher for Passover, you have to be using kitchen utensils which are kosher for Passover. Again, either brand new and set aside only for Passover, or if applicable, they can be kosherized.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, can I cook using matzah? I mean, no, technically I can take matzah and make a flour and just bake something or just cook something with.
The answer is yes. Once the matzah is baked, you can cook with it.
Okay.
You can take matzah and crumble it up and make matzah meal or matzah balls and use it. There are some Jews which have a tradition not to do that, meaning even after the matzah is baked, they still won't bake or cook, or you basically let the matzah come in contact with liquid. Mm-hmm. But that's what we call like a chumrah. That's being more strict. Okay. That's the way we do it in my house. But by the letter of the law, once the matzah is baked, once it's baked, it can no longer turn back into chametz because it's already baked. So you can make matzah pizza, you can make matzah balls, you can do whatever you want with the matzah once it's already baked.
Okay.
All right. So that's how we're getting ready for Passover. We getting rid of the chametz. Now, also before Passover starts, you're going to have to go and get everything that you're going to need for celebrating Passover. Particularly if you're doing a Seder at home, you're going to need a bunch of items. You can't just wake up on Saturday night and be like, oh, where am I going to get these from? Because some of them you might have to cook or make yourself, or you're going to have to go to the store. Such as, obviously, you need matzah, you need wine, you need, like a shank bone, you need charoset, you need all of these things, and we'll talk a little bit more through. So as the week goes by, you might want to prepare a list, and I can help you of, if you're making your own Passover Seder at home, some of the classic items that you will need to make sure to either purchase, horseradish, or, either purchase or buy. Okay, so the week goes by, we have prepared our homes for Passover, we've gotten rid of any chametz, we've sold our chametz, we've nullified our chametz, we've transformed the kitchen to some degree by either kosherizing it or getting out new utensils. Thursday night this year, we searched for the chametz, as I mentioned. We put out the 10 pieces and we searched for them. And then Friday morning, before the time of 12:23, if you want to come here, you can come here at 12 o'clock. We're going to make a fire at the backyard, put all of our 10 pieces inside. And then Saturday morning, before 11:17, you need to declare that declaration of nullifying your chametz. Okay, so let's continue on. By the way, there's I'll show you something.
That either last year or you said that chametz even applies to pet food, and how there's a place in Chicago that makes the pet food that without the grain and everything.
Chicago, I mentioned, was something else. You just look at this prayer over here. It's going to give you a little bit of a better understanding of what chametz represents. Now you can just look at it, but I'm just pointing out that when we burn the chametz, there's a special Yehi Ratzon where we ask God that just as the chametz is being destroyed and we're burning the chametz, so chametz at this point represents any negative energy, all of the impurities in our life, and we're asking Hashem, just as we're burning the chametz now, so too all of the impurities and the negative energy should be destroyed and removed from our life as well.
Okay, so this class is practical Passover, what you call it. So practical. How is all this applied, for instance, to your school, to places of work, and that kind of stuff?
So your own, well, you're responsible. Your places of work, you're responsible for your space. So if you bring lunch every day to work, or you have to go through the fridge and make sure that you didn't leave anything behind, you don't have any hidden bagels. All I can do is but for example, this building that we're in right now, which is the synagogue, I'm responsible to find somebody to make sure that in addition to both my own house and in the synagogue, all that's been cleaned for chametz. So at work, if you're the owner, then you have, to deal with that. But if you're not the owner, you're just a worker at work, and all you're responsible for is making sure that your corner is.
Okay, so at Akiva, what do they do?
I guess everybody takes home their own chametz, and then they probably send through a cleaning crew, to. All right. So you mentioned pet food. So obviously there comes in a bunch of different questions, like, for example, medicines and cosmetics and toiletries for Pesach. So we have a great resource online called the CRC, the Chicago Rabbinical Council, which is maybe where I mentioned Chicago. I don't think I said that they're producing dog food in Chicago because I have no idea who produces dog food. If I did say that, I was mistaken. But there is an organization in Chicago called the Chicago Rabbinical Council. I also said that we sell our chametz through a rabbi in Chicago because it's the same time zone. But anyway, the point is that they write that any pill that you might be taking, if it's non-chewable tablet, so if you're taking medicine that is non-chewable, you don't have to worry whether it does or does not have chametz. So if you're just taking a pill and you swallow it, that doesn't matter, unless it's candy coated, in which case it can be an exception. Vitamins is different. If it's a vitamin or a food supplement, then we have to do some research to find out if it is or it is not. But straight up medicine that you are taking, you do not. It doesn't make a difference if it's chametz. If it's liquid or chewable, so then, and it potentially could contain chametz, then you have to kind of work it through with a rabbi and see if there's a substitution available. One important disclaimer that they make over here is that you should not stop taking medicine, whether it be liquid or chewable, without first consulting your doctor and your rabbi. Right? Please don't stop taking medicine, and then, God forbid, you're going to land up with a health crisis. So if it's just a straight pill, not candy coated, it's not a liquid, and it's actual real medicine that a person has to take, you must continue taking this medicine. If it's a chewable, a liquid, a vitamin, a food supplement, and there's possibly chametz inside, then we have to see, we can talk about it. As I mentioned before, kitniot, so like these legumes, corn, and like I said before about a baby, same thing with medicine, we would allow a person to take a medicine that has kitniot. Cosmetics, so over here they say that any body soap, conditioner, creams, eyeshadow, eyeliner, foundations, lotions, mascara, nail polish, ointments, paint, shampoo, stick deodorant, all of them are permitted for use on Pesach, regardless of the ingredients. But cologne, liquid deodorants, hairspray, mousse, perfume, shaving lotion, sunscreen, all of these things contain something called denatured alcohol, and therefore they can only be used on Passover if they do not contain alcohol or the alcohol is known to be free of chametz. The good news is that these products, which are manufactured in the United States, could be used, then you don't have to worry about it. So if you have a cologne or a perfume from Europe, then we have to look into it of what kind of alcohol in it. Obviously, at any point, you could just say, hey, I'm putting away this cologne or this perfume, and I'll sell it with the rest of my chametz, and you just won't use it for 8 days. Lipstick, mouthwash, and toothpaste, which contain chametz, should not be used. Obviously, that's going already in your mouth, so that becomes a different story. So as you can see, Passover is a bit more complex than just saying, oh, let's go to the store and buy a little bit of horseradish and matzah. You have to start worrying about all other things. I do believe that your dog food, yes, does have to be checked out because you're benefiting from it and the dog is eating it. And that's the definition of chametz.
And last year on April 14th, dog food, no chametz, he said.
But I didn't say that they sell in Chicago.
They have a list on the website. I just saw it. It has to be this like exact kinds of dog. And
Yes, there are multiple organizations such as the CRC, Chicago Rabbinical Council, such as the OU, the OK. All of these companies that you see giving kosher symbols, Passover is one of the big times that they kick in, and they will often give you lists of different companies of what could be used and what can be used. So, for example, I just said toothpaste. You can go on any of their websites, and they will give you a list of toothpastes which are allowed or which are not allowed, and other such things. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. We've searched for chametz, we've gotten room for chametz, we've prepared the house, we've done research for our medication, we've done research for our cosmetics. We're ready to go. Typically, growing up in houses which are very observant of the laws of Passover, a lot of times pre-Passover is extremely stressful. So there's always a reminder over there that your children are not the Passover sacrifice, and sometimes it's hard to remember. Also, it's important, by the way, so for example, let's say there are books that you often use at the table with eating. So here in the synagogue, we have these books, which are called benches. They're the red ones up there. And the benches are the books that we use while singing Shalom Aleichem before Friday night. We hold them open when we make Kiddush and eat the challah. And then when we say the blessing after the meal, they're on the table as well. So the chances are that those books are packed full of crumbs, chametz crumbs, breadcrumbs. So you need to pack them. Either you have to go through each one and shake them all out, or you have to pack them all up, put them in a box and say, we're not going to be using these for Passover. So again, you have to start looking around and thinking, creating a list of what are the possibilities of where chametz could be found and what could or what should or should not be used on Passover. All right. So as I mentioned to you, this year, Friday night and Shabbat goes straight into Passover. So we land ourselves up in a bit of a sticky situation, because on Friday night and Saturday morning, after you make Kiddush on wine, you also have to make a blessing on hamotzi, on bread. But nobody wants bread around at this point. So what most people are doing is they're getting just a very little bit of bread, just enough to make the blessing Friday night and Saturday morning. They're going to make Kiddush on wine. Then go outside or go somewhere which is a controlled environment. You make the blessing on the bread, make sure that there's no crumbs lying around, and eat all the bread that you have, because otherwise you're going to have to deal with the leftover bread.
2 loaves like you normally do.
How much is enough? What's the
Good question. So 2 loaves I wouldn't do unless you had a big family that can go through. So Friday night you have bread, and also Saturday morning you have bread. So what we did is we bought actual
The
the rolls. So how much is enough? Probably about a half a roll per person. So let's say you buy a total of 4 rolls, 2 for Friday night, 2 for Saturday morning, and then whoever's in your house, the 2 of you eat the 2 rolls Friday night, and then the 2 rolls Saturday morning. So I bought for my house 6, 7, I think I bought 6 or 8 rolls, and we'll eat 3, 4 Friday night. But the rest of the dinner should be prepared in a way that's kosher for Passover, because all your dishes at this point will be put away. You don't want non-kosher for Passover food flying around. You're not going to have time. It's Shabbat. So the bread, you're going to eat separated from it, and then you're going to come back and eat the rest of your dinner, which is now kosher for Passover food. Saturday morning is more complicated, because Saturday morning, the last time here in Frisco, Texas, the last time that you can eat chametz is going to be on Saturday morning at 11:17 a.m. So you have to have made Kiddush, and eaten bread finished by 11:17 a.m. and made your declaration that I'm nullifying my chametz. So, for example, here in the synagogue, typically we pray on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. We only finish at 12:30. This Saturday morning, that's not going to work because then we won't finish on time. So we will be starting at 8:30. We're going to do a little bit of a rushed service, be done by 10:45 this week. 10:45, we'll make Kiddush. We'll take out the bread. We'll make the blessing on the bread. We'll say our declaration. Then we'll put the bread away. If there's any leftover bread, you need to crumb it and pour it down the sink and flush it down the toilet. At that point, nobody's allowed to own chametz. You have to be totally ready for Passover by Saturday morning, 12:20.
So how does that 11:17 time come up?
The 11:17,
What's the calculation?
it's 1 hour before midday.
1 hour before midday.
Yeah.
And midday is not 12.
Yeah. Because according to Jewish law, midday works by you take sunrise and sunset and you find the halfway point. So, yeah, basically, chametz becomes forbidden to own midday, the day before Passover. But as a precaution to that, we pull you back an hour and say that you should stop eating chametz 1 hour before. All right, then comes Saturday night. In the next, let's try 15, 20 minutes, we're going to run through a Passover Seder to the best of our abilities in 20 minutes. Whoa. So, hopefully I gave you some food for thought. Make sure the food for thought is not chametz. Something to think about how to prepare for Passover. And let's talk on Saturday night when the Passover Seder starts, how to make a Passover Seder. So first of all, you have to know that the Passover Seder cannot start until after dark, which is Saturday night, 8:30. So even if you do start before, the mitzvot that we have for the day, which is eating matzah and drinking wine, could only be done after 8:33. First thing to do is ladies light candles because it's a holiday. Now, because it's a holiday, you're not allowed to create fire from new. You're only allowed to take fire from pre-existing fire. So that means that on Friday night, when the ladies light candles, you have to prepare a 24-hour candle so that on Saturday night you have fire burning and you can now take fire from that to light the candles. Does that make sense? That's how all holidays. So first thing we're going to do is ladies are going to light candles. And once the ladies have lit candles, we're going to sit down to the Passover Seder, the famous Seder that you remember your grandfather doing. And now you became your grandfather and you're in charge of running the Seder. So what do you have? First of all, you have to have in front of you 3 matzot. Good morning, good morning. 3 matzot right in front of the table, on the table in front of you, and you stack them one on top of the other. This is the person leading the Seder. Ideally, these matzot should be handmade shmura matzah. And I want to explain to you what that means. So when it comes to matzah, you have something called shmura matzah or non-shmura matzah. Shmura means guarded. And guarded matzah means that from the moment that they cut the wheat, it's under strict supervision to make sure that it does not come in contact with any liquid, any wetness, any whatever the word is. So it's kept in special bags and special attics. It's kept very, very dry. That's shmura, guarded. In addition, you want to use handmade matzah. Why? Obviously, you know if it's handmade, if it's round. Square is machine. Why do you want to use round? At least for the Seder. Because the matzah that you're going to eat at the Seder night is you're eating it and fulfilling a mitzvah. So the matzah is supposed to be made with intention. The person making it is supposed to be thinking to themselves, this matzah I'm making right here is for the sake of a mitzvah. In fact, if you go to the matzah bakeries, which is always an interesting experience, if you ever have the opportunity to go, while they're making this matzah, they always, every few minutes, they yell out, L'shem matzot mitzvah, which means for the sake of preparing matzah for the mitzvah. So all of the matzahs should be made with intention, and machines don't really do things with intention. So at least for the Passover Seder, it's very important that you get round shmur matzah. I can help you get some if you need. And for the rest of Passover or for the cooking, you want to use the square machine matzahs. That's one thing. But for the Seder itself, you should be using handmade round matzah. So in front of you is 3 round matzahs stacked on top of each other. 1, 2, 3. Each one a whole matzah, which, by the way, sometimes is not so easy to find because often you open up the box and you find, you ever did it? You just find a bunch of small pieces lying around. So you need to find 3 whole matzahs, which, by the way, if it's smashed to pieces, a lot of times it's a good sign because it means that the matzah is really thin, which is easier to eat. If you find lots of whole matzahs, maybe means the matzah is a little thicker. Which, by the way, Olga, I just want to say something to you. You asked me before if you can cook and bake with matzah. The answer is yes. But if you're using the shmura matzah, I would caution you that as you go through the matzahs, you'll see every so often the matzah, because it's hand rolled, a lot of times there's a fold in the matzah. In other words, the person that rolled it didn't roll it smooth, so there's a fold. So I would first remove those folds and throw that out before you bake with it. Why? Because a lot of times there's uncooked flour. You can see it, the uncooked flour trapped in those little bubbles.
Okay.
So I assume it's not that common, but every 1 in every 8 matzahs, so 1 every 6. Sometimes it's just a little piece of the matzah that the dough got folded. So just crack away that little piece and throw it out, and then you can cook or bake with the rest. Okay. So I put in front of me 3 matzot, 3 whole matzahs. Then I'm going to have a Seder plate on top of those matzahs. What do I need on a Seder plate? I need 6 items on a Seder plate. Now, not every person at the Passover table needs this. This is just at least 1 per table that the leader should have it in front of him. Top right, you need as follows. You need to have a shank bone. Or some people use, instead of a shank bone, a chicken neck. That's what we use. And that sits at the top right corner to commemorate that in the temple times, on Passover, we used to bring a Passover sacrifice. Can you imagine? As please God, Mashiach comes in the next few days. We go to Jerusalem. Every family brings a sacrifice. We sit on the hilltops of Jerusalem eating matzah. Open spit. Your animal has to be cooked. Not allowed to cook it in water. It has to be cooked on an open spit. All across the hilltops of Jerusalem, family sitting, eating lamb, matzah, maror. Smells so good. Like it? It's a good idea. One big part of the Passover Seder that we're missing is the actual sacrifice. That was in temple times. That was a huge part of it. So top right corner of you're sitting with a Passover plate in front of you. Top right corner is shank bone. Shank bone is like a lamb bone or a chicken neck or something to commemorate the Passover lamb sacrifice, which was brought in temple times. And you do not consume that at any point during the Passover Seder. So you just leave it there. And when you're done both Seders, you can throw it out. Top left corner, we have a hard-boiled egg. That is to commemorate that in temple times, you also brought a second sacrifice, a holiday sacrifice. This was not unique to Passover. This was every holiday. Every holiday that a Jew showed up to the temple as a donation to God for showing up, he would bring a sacrifice. Then, so top right corner, the bone, top left corner, the hard-boiled egg. Middle of the Pesach plate is going to be bitter herbs. Our tradition is to take a few pieces of romaine lettuce and horseradish. So it's 2 big pieces of romaine lettuce sprinkled with horseradish. Now, horseradish, there's 1 of 2 ways to do it. Either you go to the store and you buy horseradish, or you buy ready-made horseradish, or you go to the store and you buy actual horseradish root. You ever seen it?
Plus, it's used as medicine too.
So this is prepared horseradish that you see right over here. It's prepared, has a kosher symbol on it. It's one option. The other option is if you want to go hardcore, you go and you get actual horseradish roots. It looks like this. And you can already smell the horseradish. And you peel it. And then you put it through the grinder, which has 1 of 2 ways to do it. Either you put it through a hand grinder. Now you have ground up horseradish. You can choose how big you want the chunks, how small you want the chunks. Or the other way is you put it through the electric grinder, the food processor. And if you know anybody that has a cold or is suffering from allergies, There's a tried and tested pre-Passover tradition that you be the one and you stick your head over the bowl, and after you grind it, you open it up, and I promise you, all of your colds will be cured for about at least a week. Your whole entire sinus system will be like flushed. You'll never have a alternatively, if you have a young, you might not be happy with me, but alternatively, this is how it smells before it's been cut up. This is nothing. Alternatively, I don't know if this is strong either. Alternatively, if you have a younger brother or sister, after you grind it, you call them, you'd be like, oh, could you just open that bowl for me? And you're going to have a family fight right then and there. Basically, what I'm trying to say is it's an extremely strong, potent, I don't know. I can't tell you exactly how strong this is going to land up being. You don't know. You'll find out.
That's a Tom Thumb item.
This, but a lot of times I think
Asian markets, you go to some special market.
I found it in the Tom Thumb, but usually what happens is Tom Thumb buys it from the Asian market for, let's say, $1 a pound, and then they sell it for $5 a pound.
They had the K market this week.
It's part of the Jewish holidays is that they just go to places that sell regular stuff and then they resell it to you for a lot of money. It's part of feeling like you're enslaved or something. I'm not sure. I'm just joking. But you can go to, wherever you can find it, any Asian market, any.
So it's not a matter of a kosher item.
Correct. So any raw vegetable in general does not have to be kosherized. Like if this is completely unprocessed, you can see this is a root. I'm going to do all the processing. It's going to be my knives, my peelers, my everything. If you bought what Jared is like the bowl of horseradish, then it needs to have a kosher symbol because that's already a processed item. So top right corner is the shank bone or the chicken neck. Top left corner is the hard-boiled egg. In the center is the maror, the bitter herbs, which is a combination of romaine lettuce and horseradish grind or cut, at least small bits that you're going to be able to eat. Bottom right corner is going to be what's called charoset. Charoset is this paste-like mixture which you cannot buy in an Asian market because it's, you have to either make it or buy it. And it's basically made up of nuts, wine, apples, pears. And after those 4 primary ingredients, you get down to a lot of different family customs. If you put in dates, you add cinnamon, all sorts of different things, but it should be like pasty. And traditionalists eat that. Bottom left corner is going to be a vegetable that we're going to use to dip in the salt water. So that could be a potato, obviously cooked, you could eat it, onion, parsley, whatever it is, that you're used to. And then on the bottom, again, you have another set of maror. So you have another set of romaine lettuce together with horseradish inside of it. So you have these 6 items on your Passover Seder plate.
What's the egg mean?
The egg is just to represent in temple times a second sacrifice that a person was obligated to bring. So every holiday, not only Passover, but every holiday that a Jew showed up at the temple, he had to bring a sacrifice in honor of coming to the temple. So Passover landed up being that every person was obligated to give 2 sacrifices. One was the Passover sacrifice, and one was the holiday sacrifice. So
2 shank bones.
Good question.
That's 2 sacrifices.
Right. To differentiate between the fact that it was 2 different kinds of sacrifices, and each sacrifice had kind of its rules and regulations as to what was required, which kind of animal was required, how it could be eaten, which parts of it were eaten. Each animal kind of had a little bit of a different set of rules.
Mm.
So why the romaine lettuce with the maror?
Theoretically, you can eat only horseradish, but you're going to have to eat quite a lot to reach the amount of foods that you have to eat. So it's going to be difficult. So romaine lettuce, at least the stem of the romaine lettuce is like a bitter herb.
Why not just regular bit lettuce?
I think it's not bitter. There's no like.
Romaine lettuce is bitter?
Okay. The stem of the romaine lettuce could be bitter. All right. So we have our Passover Seder in front of us, and now we're going to begin the Passover Seder. The Passover Seder is made up of 15 steps. The first step of the Passover Seder is where everybody fills up a cup of wine, and we make kiddush. Kiddush is we sanctify the day. Now remember, every Shabbat and every holiday we make Kiddush. So this is not unique. But there's a big difference between this Kiddush and every other Kiddush. Every other Kiddush that you make on any other holiday, one person fills a cup of wine and everybody else listens. And if they want, drinks a little bit of wine. On tonight, everybody has to have a full cup of wine in front of them. Why? Because on the Passover Seder, there's every person at the Passover Seder has an obligation to drink 4 cups of wine. The first cup of wine is going to be drunk at Kiddush. So again, usually one person makes Kiddush and everybody sips wine or whatever it is. But here, in this case, everybody has to drink their own cup of wine. Wine means either wine or grape juice, potentially as well. And wine doesn't mean that you have to get 13.5% wine. You can find a low alcohol wine or whatever it is that you're going to need. So either wine or grape juice, everybody around the table is going to fill up a cup of wine, again, or a cup of grape juice. And even if one person is leading the Kiddush, everybody is going to drink the cup of wine. Now, while we drink the cup of wine, we lean to the left. You ever seen that? So, and of course, here in Texas, every year we make the same joke. What do we say? That even in Texas on Passover, you have to lean to the left. You got it?
Kids, I lean to the right.
Not on Passover. So
Why do you lean to the left?
There's a question. I'll explain to you in 1 second. So when you lean to the left, the leaning has to be, you actually have to lean onto something. So just to lean your body like this is not enough. You have to either lean on a friend or find a second chair or move your own chair. But it has to be leaning where you're pushing your weight against something. The common Ashkenazi custom is that women do not lean. So it is only the men. Why do we lean? So the reason why we lean before right or left, the reason why we lean is because there was a time where the common way of royalty or freedom was that they would eat on like these couches. And they would kind of like, that was the way that, I think it was in the times of the Romans. So that was the way of doing it. So kind of copying or following that, the Jews said that on Passover, regardless of if you're free or a slave or wealthy or poor or high in society or low in society, everybody's going to kind of spread themselves out to represent freedom and represent royalty. The reason why you lean on your left is for 2 very practical reasons. Number one, it says in the Talmud that most people are right-handed. So if you lean to the left, then you have the availability of your right hand, right? If you would lean to the right and you're trying to use your right hand, you're going to have a very awkward getting. Although based on that reason, you would make the argument and say, so everybody should lean to the side that would free their hand. So the Gemara says, but there's another reason, which is that your 2 pipes, your trachea and your esophagus, is that what it's called, are designed in such a way that if you lean to the right, you increase the chances of choking. So therefore, no matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, everybody should lean to the left-hand side. So that way, when you eat and when you drink, you're minimizing the chances of choking. Very deep Kabbalistic spiritual reasons, but there you see the beauty of the Talmud, which is in a very, very realistic, practical sense. Nobody don't want to land up choking.
And as far as kids over the age of bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, they can drink, right?
Wine?
Yes.
Assuming that you, the parent, approve of it, and
what Judaism said about it.
Yes. Now, I cannot give your children alcohol because then I'm going to get in trouble.
But back then, no, we didn't have alcohol restriction age, right?
2 things.
So,
what I would do with my own kids is that I would, even for myself, I find an alcohol which is very low. There's 2 important things. It's good that you brought up. Find number one, alcohol, which is wine, which is low in alcohol. You can get wine, which is 4.5%, 5%. Or for a child, if you're worried that the alcohol is not good for them, you can mix it. So you could go half wine, half grape juice. And the other thing is, how big is a cup? So the answer is that you can find small cups. You have to drink like 3.5 to 4 ounces. So find a 4-ounce cup. 4 ounces of wine 4 times stretched over 2-3 hours with food in between. most people will be fine.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried. I'm just asking. So, in Judaism, what is the legal age of drinking? Is there a such concept?
No, but Judaism just basically says that after a boy turns 13 or a girl turns 12, they become obligated in doing all the mitzvot the same way a 25-year-old does. So at that point, yes, they're obligated to drink all the 4 cups. Judaism also says that you have to respect the laws, you have to keep the laws of the land. So from my understanding, a parent, under their supervision, they're allowed to give a child, a teenager, I think, alcohol, under supervision, but a stranger can't. So from the Torah's perspective, once you're 12, 13, you're obligated to do mitzvah. The ideal way of doing the mitzvah is with wine. But if for whatever reason it is, for health reasons or for any other reason a person can't drink wine, they can do grape juice, first of all. And also, like I was saying, don't go get a 12-ounce cup. And then, unless you're trying to get drunk, then that's a different story. But if you drink 4 12-ounce cups of 17% alcohol, you know what I mean? Then yes, it might be a very,
You think it's poor.
right? We've gone. But if you get 4 times 4 ounces, 4 cups of 4 ounces of low alcohol wine, even a 14, 15-year-old should be fine. But listen, in all of these cases, you have to be responsible, you have to be smart, and you have to know, you can't lose your element of common sense. So it's interesting that Judaism does consider a 13-year-old an adult, but there are certain laws that don't kick in until a person turns 20. For example, you wouldn't go to the army unless you're 20. If a person lost a parent, they would not be allowed the court. So it's an interesting law, but basically, let's say a person, this is brought down in the Talmudic times. Person lost a parent, and when the parent passed, the son or the daughter inherited land. The court would not allow that child to make decisions what to do with that land until they turn 20. So you can't come and say, hey, I'm 17, I'm 18, I inherited my father's land, I want to go ahead and do business with that land. The court would assign a guardian that would hold the land for him, and he would only be allowed to make business decisions at the age of 20, until 20. So even it's just interesting because even though at a 14-year-old boy, we say, hey, you're obligated in doing all the mitzvot, but we're not taking you to the army at 14, neither are we going to allow you to sell your father's property until you turn 20. And I can't remember for sure, but I think also when it comes to punishment, there's a difference between a 13-year-old and a 20-year-old, but I would have to look that up because I don't remember for sure.
That plays into what we talked about, was it last week or the week before, about being 20, that there were 603,000.
Right. The count in the Torah, whenever people are counted in the Torah, that's only men over the age of 20. They were not counted from the age of 13. And that was also associated with war. They were not sending 18-year-olds to war. They only went to war over the age of 20. All right. So the first step of the 15 steps of the Seder is, I don't know if we're going to get to all through 15, but we'll do as many as we can, is that you make Kiddush. Kiddush is you're sanctifying the day, and everybody in this case fills up a cup of wine. When it comes time to drink a cup of wine, you drink a full cup of wine. Again, like I said before, you should be drinking like basically 4 ounces. If your cup is 8 ounces, then you don't drink all 8. You could just drink a jor. You can drink a little bit more than 50% of the cup, but try find as small of a cup as to match that size. All right. I'm not going to be able to go through all the 15 steps of the Seder, but basically, just to summarize, there are a few mitzvot, few instructions that we have. Number 1 is drinking 4 cups of wine. Number 2 is eating matzah. Eating matzah on Passover night is a biblical obligation. So at some point in the Seder, if you follow the 15 steps of the Seder, you're going to be eating matzah. While eating matzah, you should be eating to the left. There are appropriate blessings to be said on the matzah, and all Haggadot. Haggadah is the book, will guide you through these 15 steps. You also have to eat maror, which is the bitter herbs. As we mentioned before, is the romaine lettuce mixed with the shredded horseradish. So matzah, maror, 4 cups of wine, and you only lean when drinking the 4 cups of wine and eating the matzah. So eating the maror, you don't. And then the other big mitzvah of the day is to tell over the story. So you should gather your family. The children should ask the 4 questions. If there's no children, somebody else should ask the 4 questions, and you should spend a few minutes discussing the miracles of the story, discussing the relevance in our life, discussing the fact that we strongly believe God is involved and invested in everything that we do. And prepare for this. If you are leading a Seder as the father of a house, you need to prepare for this. Prepare a story, prepare an idea, age appropriate. So yes, it is important and nice to engage the kids with throwing frogs at them, maybe giving them presents and bargaining for your afikoman back. But it's also important to present some real content to your children. Tell them a story. Let them understand or feel and discuss the importance of this, the fact that we believe God is involved in everything, or ask them, challenge them, why are we still discussing the Exodus from Egypt if it happened so many years ago? Where was the gain of being in exile? Why did God do this to us? Because we believe that God put us in slavery. He already told Abraham, your children will be in slavery. So what's the value and the important lessons, that the difficulties in life, where did they get us? Where did we go after we left Egypt? What does it mean to be free? Right? Does freedom mean that you can do whatever you want? Is that freedom? Ask your children. If you can sit on your couch and just play Xbox from the morning to the night, smoke weed and eat potato chips, is that the definition of freedom? Where did the Jewish people go when they left Egypt? They went to get the Torah. So they got a whole new rule. They left, right? God said, I'm going to give you freedom. Took us out of Egypt. 49 days later, brought us to Mount Sinai and gave us a whole set of rules from here to Mars and said, you can't eat this, you can't do this, you can't. That's freedom. The Torah is freedom. Now you can't eat this, you can't do that. What's the answer? The answer is freedom doesn't mean you could do nothing. That's not freedom, right? Freedom is free to express your true self. If a person is a musical genius, for them practicing how to play their musical instrument, that is them working towards their free expression, but they need to practice it. And we can discuss with your family in which way do they see themselves as slaves. Everybody's a slave to something. So let's identify one area in our lives where we're slaves. Are we slaves to our phone? Right? My wife is always telling me, get off your phone, get off your phone. If you don't know in which area you are enslaved in your life, ask the people around you. They'll tell you, are we slaves to work? Are we slaves to the news? Are we slaves to pessimism? A lot of people are slaves to pessimism. Every day you talk to them, they're pessimistic about they've enslaved themselves to negativity. Are we slaves to Hollywood culture? Right? Have we adopted the perception of reality the way the movies want to present itself? Are we slaves to social media? We can all find something in which we are slaves. Are we slaves to our own ego? Are we stuck? Everybody can identify one area or two areas where they are stuck. If you can't, you can always get somebody to assist you and say, where am I stuck? Or you can look for an area in your life where there is pain. It's an amazing thing, right? Find an area in your life where there's elements of pain, and you'll find something where you're stuck over there. Is it in a relationship? Is it in work? Whatever it is, there's pain pain meaning like something's not right, often points to some element of you being stuck. And then the question of Passover is how do we push through that? And of course, in the context of the religious setting, the answer is always introducing more of Hashem into my life. It's going to create freedom. So if I'm a slave to pessimism, to negativity, and if I introduce Hashem more into my life, a little more faith. Let's be a little more faithful. Let's trust that Hashem has a plan, that even all the people that are running wild and seem to be ruining everything, there's a plan over there. God is in charge. I'm not in charge, right? I didn't create the world. I don't have to feel responsible for the creation of the world. All I have to be responsible for my little thing, a slave to my work. So a little more Hashem, a little more faith that God will take care of me and my family. He'll present enough sustenance. Whatever it is, the answer, at least in this religious setting, will come through a little bit more Hashem, Torah, mitzvot in my life. Or even on more of a practical level. I've been thinking about elevating my observance of kosher. I'm stuck. So this Passover can be about, pushing through that boundary. So take the time and prepare for it. Prepare for it. Don't, if you're going to be sitting in front of a family on guests on Passover night, you need to prepare. You can't just show up and be like, oh, let's see what it says in the book. Think about it. Prepare a story, prepare an idea, prepare a question that you can share with your family. So matzah, wine, maror, telling over the story, and obviously there should be dinner as well.
Opening window, is it one of the tradition just to show that we're not afraid?
So I think what you're referring to is two things. That on the night of Passover, there is at one point in the Haggadah, it says that Elijah, we open the door for Elijah the prophet. So in my house, and the way I was raised and the way we do it is that any door between where you're sitting and outside, you open all the doors and you allow Elijah the prophet into your home. Obviously, Elijah the prophet doesn't need to actually go through the door, but this is an act of symbolism. By the way, it says that when at that moment, the gates of heaven are open and a person can pray and ask for anything. It's a good time to pray and ask for anything what you want when we welcome Elijah. We actually go to open the door and we take candles with us. So we go to the door with candles to welcome Elijah. And there's a beautiful story with one of the Chabad Rebbes that he was a child and his father told him like this. He said, when we open the door for Elijah the prophet on the night of Passover, he said, don't waste the ask. So they told him, because you could ask for anything. Don't waste the ask. And don't ask that the Raiders will win. It's a waste of an ask. Who cares? Right? But don't, unless it's important to you. But don't waste the ask. And then his father told him, you should ask from God that you should be a mensch. By the way, we don't necessarily always think of this. You're supposed to pray for spiritual success. In other words, you need to ask that God should assist you in your spiritual pursuits. That God should open your mind. God should open your heart. You should feel. A lot of times we walk around feeling numb. We don't feel Hashem in our lives. Hashem, please allow me to feel your presence in my life. That's a perfectly legitimate ask. We don't only have to ask for health and money. We could also ask for spiritual. Open my mind that I should be able to perceive the Torah on a deeper level. These are good asks. And then there's another element to what you're saying, which is that the first night of Passover is called Leil Shimurim, the night of protection, because that was the night that we actually left Egypt and God protects the Jewish people. So it's written in Jewish law that on that night, person doesn't lock their doors. You leave your doors unlocked all night because God is watching your house. Now, most people are not willing to do that. Neither am I sitting here suggesting that you leave your door wide open, because then somebody's going to run into your house and steal your stuff. Then you're going to come back crying to me, and don't blame it on me. But as a sign that tonight is the night of protection, a lot of people do something that shows that we are recognizing tonight as the Leil of Shimurim. So that means if your door usually has two locks, you can lock one lock, you can leave a window open. Some recognition that tonight is called Leil Shimurim, the night of protection, the first night of Passover. And in recognition of that, we are, locking ourselves up a little bit less than usual, whether it's the window or the door, in observance or in recognition that tonight God is going to protect all the Jewish people. So I think that's either one of those two things is what you're referring to. But the open window, does that make sense?
It just when we went to the maybe 10